Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Planning Advisory Committee meeting for the town of Quispamsis for Tuesday, August 13th. With that, I'll move right on to item 2. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda, please? Mr. Bishop?
So moved.
So moved.
Thank you, Brent. Can we vote on that, please? Not coming out. There we go. The motion's carried unanimously. With that, we'll move on to item 3, disclosures of interest. Any disclosures of interest? None being, we'll move on to item 4, the approval of previous minutes. Is there any adjustment to the previous minutes? None being, can I have a motion to receive and file, please? Brenda?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder for that, please? Kendall?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Can we have a vote on the approval of the previous minutes, please? That being said, that motion's carried unanimously. That being, we'll move on to item 5. Can I have a motion to receive and file business arising from previous minutes? Brent?
So moved.
Can I have a seconder on that? Brenda?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Can we have a vote, please? That motion's carried unanimously. With that, we'll move on to unfinished business. We have one item, item 6A, carried over from July 9th, 2024. That's 419 Bradley Lake Road. Could the applicant please come up to the podium for that item, please? Could you please state your name for the record? Okay, Joe. Jennifer, you can introduce this item for us, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you to the committee. Before you is an application for approval for a building lot, one residential building lot that does not front a municipal street. As you found in your staff report, there have been already 2 lots created off of this same municipal, well, it was a part of Westmoreland Road. Staff cannot find any indication that the identification of it being used as a public street has ever been removed from the land, so that road is still considered to be a public right-of-way. In 2006, we did approve Civic 8 and 15 Royden Lane to be in existence on that lane. We're just simply asking for the approval of another single building lot using that access. Everything is in my staff report, and I'm open to any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Mr. Roberts, you would have received the same package we did in the mail. Anything you'd like to add or discuss prior to any comments from PAC or members of the public?
Well, the staff report kind of summed it up really well, raised all the issues from a technical standpoint, and I also read through all the letters from the adjacent landowners within the radius, and I can understand some of their concerns. And on behalf of my client, he wants to state that he's just wanting to enjoy the same tranquility and serenity that everyone else is, and as far as construction concerns, runoff, things like that. He wants to remind everyone that it's going to be, or would be done with minimal disturbance to the environment and also built to town standards, and that he's not building a subdivision in there. He's just trying to build one more dwelling on a private lane.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. Any members of PAC have any questions for the applicant? None being? Oh, Brenda, go ahead,
Just a
Brenda.
quick one. That's going to like front on Royden Drive, or what's the little piece of land going down to the old Westmoreland Road? Yeah. Yeah, and, right, but then there's a little piece of land there, like sort of L-shaped. Is that a piece that could be turned into? Okay. Okay. Okay, I'm good.
Into that flag lot property.
Yeah, okay.
Any other members of PAC have any? Oh, go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, thank you. I understand that the garbage truck does not go on the old Westmoreland Road, am I correct to say that? So where would the owner of the property put the garbage?
At the end of Royden Lane on
On
French Village Road.
on what property?
On the old right-of-way, or the road, public right-of-way.
Can you show it to me perhaps, so I can have a better understanding?
In this area here.
Okay, and that's city, town property?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from members of PAC to the applicant? None being, is there anyone in the audience or online willing to speak for or against this item? Okay, could the applicant please sit down? Could you please come up to the podium, please, and state your name for the record?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name's Kelly Van Buskirk. Speaking on behalf of Russell Brook and Sarah Brook, who live on Royden Lane, as well as Krista and Alex Stewart, who live on Royden Lane. A few things. First, if I may, I think it would be incorrect to describe the old Westmoreland Road as a road, a street, a highway, or even a right-of-way. And the reason I say that it would be incorrect to do that is because the Highways Act defines all of those items, and none of them, this piece of land, this strip, does not constitute any of those. For example, in the Highways Act, the right-of-way is described as those portions of land constructed and maintained as a highway. Clearly, this piece of land that you're talking about is not a right-of-way under the Highways Act. It's not a road either, because under the Highway Act, a road is defined as any place used for the passage of vehicles. And as you can see, that's not this piece of land. Further, a road means any place used for the passage of vehicles and includes bridges, right? Sorry. So under the legislation, this piece of land that is being considered before you today is not a road, it's not a highway, it's not a street, it's not a right-of-way. The New Brunswick Court of Appeal considered a situation like this in the 2020 case of Banks and the province of New Brunswick. And without taking you through the entirety of that analysis, what I would say is that the Court of Appeal looked at a question of whether a private right-of-way or a private access road can be a public right-of-way. And here I would say that if you apply the principles that the Court of Appeal laid out in the Banks case, it seems clear that this is not a public right-of-way in that context. This is a private access road. And in fact, Mr. Chair and members of the committee, this body described it many times as a private access road. And in fact, the sign, I asked Mr. and Mrs. Brooke to bring a photograph of the sign that exists on this little driveway, and it says Royden Lane, private lane. That's the sign that appears on the land today. And why would that be the case? Well, because as I mentioned, that this body has described it as such, and I'll make some references. First, it's been called in in the 2011 decision of the PAC. The decision, September 27th of 2011, states, under the recommendation of the committee, which was number 3 in the decision, in part 3, the private nature of this road will require that the abutting owners be responsible for all maintenance, upgrades, and liability. And the important statement there is that, and this was this body that said, it was the private nature of that Royden Lane. Secondly, in the 4th subparagraph of this body's decision, it was said that a hold harmless agreement must be executed, and homeowners aware of the responsibilities associated with the private right-of-way. And that was, again, this PAC that described Royden Lane as a private right-of-way. And so one of my concerns here in this case is that there is, and I understand why this would be, a preference, but the applicant is asking you to completely ignore what you as a body or your predecessors have said about this very access route. It was you who said that it was a private access road. And so that's how it's been described ever since. The reason that's important is because now the applicant is asking you to grant him rights over that private access route, the route that the PAC said was private. And the problem with that is that you wouldn't do that, I don't think, with respect to your own driveway. You would not, I don't think, nor should you, give someone else rights over your private access driveway. And so our submission is that first, and you all know this, but your role, as you know, is to consider reasonable requests for variances from the bylaws of the town, reasonable requests. And so when I looked at your bylaw 38, section 6, it really does seem to require or suggest that there should be frontage on a street. And so when I looked at that question, it seemed clear for the reasons I've already described that this is not a street. It's not a road. It's not a right-of-way under the Highways Act, none of that. And so if that's your first requirement, the question becomes, would it be reasonable to grant a variance from that fundamental requirement of the town's bylaw? In other words, if the town has set out in its zoning bylaw the requirement that there be frontage on a public street, and there is none because there's no street, there's no road, there's no right-of-way. Is that a reasonable thing for you to be asked to give? And my thought on that point was no, for the reasons that I've set out. The second question I had in my mind was, okay, let's pretend that there is a street. Let's pretend there is a road, and there isn't. And on that point, remember the definition of road that I referred you to. I asked Mr. and Mrs. Brooke to take some photographs of the road, and specifically the road that is being proposed for access. And this is it. You know, it's thick trees. There's no passage of vehicles, and there hasn't been, as far as I can tell, for decades and decades and decades. Many decades. So my question was then, okay, well, how would this become reasonable such that the PAC would grant this variance? The first variance being there's no street, so we don't meet that requirement. The second variance being that it's a 6 meter access point. Or 6 meter frontage versus a 54 meter frontage. Mathematically, I thought, okay, I wonder what that equals. What's being asked for is an 88% variance. In other words, this proposal meets 12% of what's required. And so, in my mind, that would be difficult to reconcile with any reasonableness. The third point was that if you were to count the old Westmoreland Road as an actual street, then you have another problem, I think, which is I think that the house that sits at the forefront of it, the Cormier house, wouldn't meet the setback requirements. And the reason that's true is because it was never a road like that. And so the town has passed zoning bylaws that require setback requirements, and to pretend that this is a road, which it isn't, but to pretend that it is, means that you now have another violation in respect to the Cormier house.
Mr. Burke, I'm gonna have to cut you off. There was a 10-minute limit
Okay?
for now, and we'll hear from other members, and then we have some questions probably for you
Thank
later.
you.
Thank you. Yeah, we can ask our questions right now while he's right there.
To be honest, I'm not sure if this should be directed to you or staff, but the old Westmoreland Road, has it been closed up? Like it's,
Well, nobody knows, and that's a good question. We called the Department of Transport, and they indicated to me,
because to me, it looks like it's still I'll call it a street right away, but it looks like it's a street right away connected to French Village Road, because unless the mapping is incorrect, but, so I guess if you're not sure of that answer, I'll hop on to the second question. Who owns the private lane then?
yeah, the private
Like,
lane?
according to land titles and everything like that, who would own it?
I think that the access is, in my view, if you look at the Banks and Province of New Brunswick case that I mentioned from the Court of Appeal,
Right.
I think the ownership, and certainly the entitlement to make use of it, lies with the stewards. I didn't do a full title search, but it looks to me like the stewards got the lands from the Hunters. My understanding is that Mrs. Stewart is a hunter.
Okay.
And so the Hunters had that access, and then basically back in 2006 and again in 2011, this PAC dealt with that access and described it essentially as a private access road, and it for the benefit of those two properties, the
Okay.
Brook property and the other one. Yeah,
And those two homes maintain it. So if it has to be plowed or they do the maintenance?
they do. Yeah, yeah,
And who originally constructed it? Those two homes?
yes, yeah.
Okay.
My understanding is when, and this is only my understanding, but my understanding is that when the Stewarts developed those two lots, they had to come to PAC, and PAC said, well, and this is in the 2006 and 2011 decision, but basically said, look, we're concerned enough that we need you to sign a hold harmless agreement. So a hold harmless agreement that
Right.
says, look, by the way, you acknowledge the concerns expressed by the fire department and associated potential delays due to the steep grade of the driveway. And you will indemnify the town from all claims by third parties arising from the granting of the variance. Back then, clearly there were concerns just about two houses using that right of way.
Any further questions? Dwight or Jennifer, it's my understanding that the town owns that property, 20-meter right away. I don't know if one of you is Dwight, maybe?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the committee. And I think when we look at what's been presented to the committee, I think we can find common ground in that it isn't, a street in terms of being fully maintained and asphalted, even to the extent of, when you look at a road, if you were to look at it as a rural road, that, wouldn't meet that definition. Being an unmaintained road, obviously there's some items with that in terms of, how it sits today. I guess the question to ask is, it is our understanding that there was a proclamation in 1974 that old public right-of-ways that existed within a municipality. Through that proclamation, they became the ownership of the municipality in terms of right-of-way ownership, not so much in terms of the land underneath and those types of things. So I guess when we look back to the decisions of the committee, even through those that currently exist and the agreements and those things that were granted, I think the question that still lingers out there is in terms of the ownership. It is my understanding that there are numbers of these that exist throughout the province. And as I mentioned, in 1974, that proclamation, they were basically transferred to the local government or the municipality of the time. In order to release your interest in those right-of-ways, then there had to be a stop up and close. Whether that was a stop up and close of the entire right-of-way for, evermore in a day, if it was for a period of time, or if there was an arrangement in terms of you stop up and close with, in terms of lease arrangements and all those types of things. It is my understanding, and through a search of our records, that document doesn't exist for this particular portion. There is a stop up and close that was addressed to other portions of the old Westmoreland Road, which one would say, okay, then obviously it would apply to other portions. So I think that is the lingering question at this point in time, to actually establish what is the status of this particular right-of-way or Old Westmoreland Road, however we want to refer to it today. And I think that is the question that really needs to be clarified to move forward. So I think that's sort of a thought that I would give to the committee to think about as they move through this process, and establishing the ownership and who owns that land and who had the authority to grant the proper rights to pass over it and those such of things, which based on conversations for other sections and other similar situations in our municipality, that needs to be established, and whether it was ever stop up and close or not. Does the town still own it? That's something that needs to be clarified at this point in time to really address the ask that's before the committee. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Not at this point, because we're still asking questions. Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Van Buskirk at this time? Brent?
No. Staff.
Okay, go ahead.
Chrissy, can you bring back up the map for a minute, please? And zoom in. So I guess my question is, what's considered Westmoreland, Old Westmoreland Road, and what's considered void land? I guess what's the defining?
White, go ahead.
How do we define a definition?
Again, when I actually going back and looking through, you know, the reports that came forward and all those things at this point in time, looking at what's been presented, I think the approvals of the committee was to provide access over that particular right of way, with the understanding that if you want to access those lots, then you're responsible to maintain that private access to those lots. But again, it goes back to the key point that's been made is if that is owned by the current property owners, then has been stated to the committee, they would have to grant permission for somebody else to move over their access. So the question goes back to, as I previously mentioned, what is the current status of the old Westmoreland Road right-of-way, that portion of land that's clearly delineated? Is it under the ownership of the municipality? In order to grant use, does there need to be a stop up and close? And as I mentioned, these are things that we've looked at for other similar situations. We have undertaken stop up and closes for those. For example, if you go, north is up, if you go west, there is the old Colton Brook, no, which one is that? Yeah, that particular right of way that's currently on the property, on the screen right now. That is a similar situation. It was an old right of way. It was a road at one time. It failed to be maintained. It basically, you know, nature took over and it grew up, but the right of way did not disappear. There was an ask of council at the time, do you wish to continue to maintain your interest in that portion? There was a process to do a stop up and close bylaw that released the town's interest in that particular right of way. And that interest or that title was transferred to the adjacent property owner. So there is a clear process that needs to happen to release your interest. Again, that would have been transferred to the municipality under the same proclamation as the old Westmoreland Road right of way. So again, I go back to that, to me, is something that needs to be established clearly, recognizing what's been presented to the committee to really make a decision on moving forward.
Thank you, Dwight. Any further questions from Mr. Van Buskirk? Anyone else in the audience willing to speak for or against this item? Please come up and state your name for the record, please.
My name is Bruce Cormier.
Okay, Bruce.
I live at 230.
Sure.
Which is my home right here.
Okay.
So at the corner here is 25 feet from that wood edge. Or pardon me, 28 feet from the wood edge. My well is right here, it's 25 feet from that wood edge. With the well coming out, this year will disappear. So me and my wife, as retiring, will be sitting out on our deck watching cars. Because I don't believe it's got 70 acres back here, that's only going to be one building lot. I know that's what the proposal is now.
Okay, you can come back to the podium, please. Yeah, okay, no, any,
By taking that out, that's gonna take out half my backyard, I would assume.
I guess the question I would have, building so close to that property line. How'd
didn't-
that happen?
I did not build that place, I bought it.
Okay, no, thank you. Yeah, anything further you'd like to add?
Like I said, it's gonna be my pain for somebody else's gain,
Okay,
for sure.
okay, thank you.
Okay.
Anyone else like to speak for or against this item? Please come up and state your name for the record, please.
Alex Stewart.
Oh, come on up, wait till you come up to the podium. Go ahead.
Alex Stewart.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Stewart. Please proceed.
Well, I would like to speak against this proposal. My wife Krista and I, we built the two houses, 15 Royden and 8 Royden, and actually 226 French Village, we built that also. And when the last time we were in front of this committee to get permission to build our last house, 8 Royden Lane, we spoke about it and were told by this committee not to come back because we would not be granted any more lots to build there. And I'm just wondering what's changed.
I can't answer that. I don't see that in any of the memorandums that were provided in the package where that was stated. I don't have an answer for that. I don't know if town wouldn't have an answer for that if it's not in writing at this
I
time.
understand that the records only go back to 2014.
Yeah.
And this would have been 2011 that we spoke that.
Yeah.
And
I
then
think it's understood though, knowing that, you knew knowing how many acres are behind there that future development could occur.
Well, not
Somehow.
not if this committee says, no, you cannot, don't
Well,
come back.
We don't have, we don't have record of that right today, but I understand what your concern is, for sure, 100%.
Okay, that's anyway, I just wanted to.
Mr. Bishop?
Yeah, I mean, just a comment to that is if the town did say that, whether they did or whether they didn't, I wasn't here at that point either, they may have said that not to come back unless the road is upgraded to municipal standard, not a private road, but. That's not what they said. I don't know what they said, that's a comment that I'm.
Please come up and state your name for the record, please.
Roger Oldham, OLDHAM. You literally just said a few minutes ago that land is now ready for future development.
60 acres, I don't know, we don't know what's could happen there. It's
Well, you
like
just said it's ready for future
it's like any other land.
So, do you go out in that area at all in French Village?
Do I go out there? Yeah,
Yeah.
I drive out there,
Okay.
sure.
So you know how dangerous that is getting out there now?
Yeah, just
Okay,
like
so
other
now you're
other
gonna
areas.
add another 70+ acres of development out there with an access road right in our backyard. So do you think how fair is that to us, as people that have lived out there for 30 years, that moved out there to get away from the city, to have a private life in a private area? Now, you're gonna put this into development and put all this and put our property taxes through the roof because of what you guys are wanting to do. That's all I wanna say. Thank you.
Thank you. Third and final time, is there anyone in the audience or online willing to speak for or against this item? Please come up and state your name for the record.
Name is Krista Stewart. I was a hunter. This land, 70 acres, was given to my father by his grandfather. And may I go over there as well?
Sure.
When we were talking about streets and the lane, I'm just going to show you. You can't even see the lane. So this is Royden Lane.
Yep.
That's French Village Road, so it's not a road. It's one-car lane is what it is. And we were told not to come back. Second of all, my mother passed away last year, sold her house along with the 70 acres. Previously to this, she always complained about having to pay the property taxes of 70 acres. So somebody from Quispamsis went out there, and this would have to be within the last 10 years, and deemed it undevelopable land. It was swampland and it could not be developed. How she got that information, I know on one side it is, and there is a lot of spots in there. I walk through the woods a lot there. So I also can say the first house we built right here on the French Village Road, right there, is this man's these people are basically, bought these 3 acres because they wanted privacy. So, yeah, that's Royden Lane, you can't even see it. Because it's a 1-lane private lane. So we were quite, yeah, I'm personally, the house of my mother, who was on the French Village Road, and all 70 acres was sold for $250,000. We put in a bid. I want to keep my father's land. It didn't happen. I didn't get it. But these people were told when they bid for the house that the 70 acres was they couldn't be built on. It's swampland. So I don't know who in this department went out and told them that. My mother's income tax or land tax went way down because they come out and said that most of the land is undevelopable. Now, when you go to the back, it's a cliff. So, I mean, it's hard to see, yes. Yeah, you can't tell if it's a cliff, but some of the property was sold on Brad Lake Road by my father, I believe. But yes, it's going to affect all 3 of us. And we're really close and on the same lane, and yet we got to know them so much more since this situation, and how every single one of them has the same opinion of privacy. So that's
Okay.
all I have to say. Any questions?
Thank you. Any questions? None being, is there anyone else willing to speak? Oops. Oh, go ahead, Brenda.
Just a quick one.
Sure.
You were the person that to get your land divided, right?
Yes.
So if I think about that, did PAC do the wrong thing by allowing that to be developed with no frontage on a public road?
Right, and that's why we're told.
So we should just close that all up?
Yes, you can't even walk in that. It's called,
Private lane?
yeah, physically abandoned road.
No, I'm talking about
Oh.
Royden. Because you have 2 houses that come out Royden, but the one in back there, number 15, does not have frontage
Oh, no,
on a street.
that's true. They
So
have a lane.
that was allowed to
A
happen
driveway, yes.
because you wanted it, and now you
Yes.
want to stop that because you don't want it.
No, their lane is a 1-car lane, like there's just 2 wheels into their house. I became very disabled.
Yeah.
And the house had upstairs and downstairs, and I couldn't do stairs anymore.
Understand?
I didn't ever think I'd leave that house, but I had to. And so now where our house is, we can probably see some of the traffic, if we sat out front. But again, our driveway comes right up and it joins with the lane. We had problems with flooding. We dug trenches. We've done, all the maintenance on the road, like as far as being paved, we pay for that. So.
Could a fire truck been in there? All those big trucks?
A fire truck had to come. Actually, it was the ambulance that was called, but fire trucks arrived first.
Okay. But
No
again,
problem.
I guess what I'm thinking about, did PAC do something illegal to let you do that for your own property? Divide it that way? To me, that's what I'm thinking. It should not have happened in the first place because that lot you designed in back does not front on a public street.
We were told that on that number 15, that we could make our own lane, and like this gentleman showed the picture, it says Royden. They asked us if we want to have part in naming it, but.
There's private lanes all over town,
Yes,
and they're not maintained by the town.
correct.
So that's what that issue is. right
Yeah, it was
there.
a 250 foot driveway when we moved behind us, because it was, my father gave me 4 acres. It went straight back. And so we made a little lane coming off of our first house, French Village, like a short, it's actually very close to what he's, done, where the line comes in and then the house is there. So,
Again, it doesn't have frontage on a municipal street. It's off of Royden. So, anyway, that's all
yeah, I don't know how that happened, if that was something
okay.
that shouldn't have been done. I don't know, but we did it.
Thanks,
and we are
Brenda.
here, so
Kendall?
Thank you.
I guess the part, and maybe it's a question for you or staff again or someone, the part that I don't understand is how a private lane, in my view, was allowed to be constructed on what appears to me to be a town right of way. And maybe you can explain
Yeah,
that,
it
because it's
was an
obviously,
abandoned Westmoreland Road,
right,
right? And it was being used by ATCers.
right,
you
for
name it,
sure.
all the time. So you could tell, you could see this lane, and then my mother clear cut the land, and that's how their access got to go and put the trucks there and whatever.
Right.
So that little area got quite a mess, and it upset me quite a bit because my father and I were really close. But again,
So it started being used, and then
yeah,
eventually.
yeah, it stayed that way. Like now, it's so surprising because we know where it veers off from our property, but yet it's all trees, and it was open for years when my dad got the land for, I don't know for how many years.
But did
But
the
it was
town,
always just a very, and times a lot wet spots as you could go through, but you can walk all the way across that, up over the mountain, and down to Bread Lake Brook.
right. So was like when the properties were subdivided and all that, was the lawyers drop anything that said you had a legal right to utilize that private lane? Or I think I'm missing something, how the private lane came.
I don't know.
And when it
either.
was,
I was very happy that it came in, was
right,
constructed there, because we did say, I know we said Royden, maybe we said call it a lane, I don't know.
yeah.
But
All
it's
right.
it was a private lane, and it says that, so,
Thanks for answering all my questions.
okay, no problem, thank you.
Brent, do you have one more question?
Yes, I have one. Excuse me. Sorry, that's okay. No, you're okay. So my question is, we keep talking about these properties as lane deeds, et cetera, et cetera. So my question is, on the deed, in the land survey, what does it show on the land survey from the surveyor's office? Does it show the right of way? Westmoreland Road, does it show it as designated on that property?
I believe so, Alex, don't we have a? Do you want to speak?
They say Royden Lane on newer maps.
No, that's not what I'm not asking maps. I'm asking,
On your deed.
what does it say on the deed and on the property plot from the land surveyor's office?
I think it's, if I may, I think it says the old Westmoreland Road. The problem with that, if I may, is that that doesn't really answer the question.
No, it answers my question, that's all I need to know, thank you.
Any further questions for the applicants? Or could the applicant, could the applicant please come up, sit down? Only if it's related to only if it's separate from the items already discussed.
Yeah, it is separate. I want to know, the back of my house, you said there's not enough room to put a road there. So how's that going to work?
No, that's not, I didn't say it's not enough room. I said the width of the private right-of-way, Westmoreland Road, is 20 meters.
Yeah, so my.
So I think one of your husband was saying that your well is right on that property line.
Yes.
So that'll get discussed previously, so. Yeah, you're okay to sit down. The applicant, you okay? You want to come back up to the podium, state your name?
Oh, Connie Courtney.
Sorry, come on up. I should've got you to come up first place. Sorry about that.
That's okay. My
Please.
name's Bonnie Cormier,
Okay, and you're located where?
234 French Village Road.
234, okay, perfect.
Like I said, we've been there almost 30 years. I wouldn't have bought a house with a road in front of me and one in my bedroom window.
That
Because
would've
that's
been on-
where
that-
it's
yeah.
gonna go, right by my
That would've been
bedroom
on
window.
your deed though, showing that road when you bought the house,
But
correct?
when we came down here, they said that it was a road that was never be used. It wasn't enough land there. Because we came to buy a piece of the corner piece.
Okay. All right, okay, thank you. Could the applicant please come up? Go ahead, Dwight.
Through you, Mr. Chair. I think sometimes the use of the terms roads and streets and all those things get interchanged when they're quite different. So, you know, it isn't a road. It's right now, the question is, it's clearly a right-of-way of some sort. It's our understanding that it is an old public right-of-way. Sometimes they're called abandoned roads. So to me, as mentioned before, and as been indicated by other committee members, is did something get missed in that? Is the ownership of this particular, we'll call it old right-of-way, still under the ownership of the municipality? Did the municipality, through the committee, simply say the intent, okay, and again, we'd have to go back and read through this, but was the intent, the question is, was the intent, we recognize it's still the property of the municipality, however, we're granting you the right to pass over it through the whole arms agreement. You're saying that you are gonna be responsible to maintain it, make sure there's access for emergency vehicles, all those types of things, which seems to have not been made clear in the previous decisions. And as I've stated, you know, through this process, to me, that's the question right now that needs to be asked, right? There's common ground to say, yes, we recognize that it isn't a road, it isn't a street, it is a right-of-way. Who owns it? Who has the authority to make the decision in terms of what you can pass over and what that looks like? To me, that's the question that needs further information to move forward in the correct
Thank you, Dwight, that's where my concerns was. You would have heard all the concerns. Anything you'd like to add or discuss before we put a motion forward?
Nothing except for, you know, the old expression, once a public road, always a public road until it's discontinued or closed out. That was clearly the old Westmoreland Road many years ago, and there's no record of it ever being discontinued or closed up.
All right, thank you.
Question for Mr. Roberts.
Yep.
Mr. Roberts, you're a land surveyor, licensed in the province of New Brunswick. What does it say on all the properties? So if I asked you to produce a proper survey of that area, what does it show on the,
Old Westmoreland Road, non-maintained.
I mean, okay. And that's for that all right across the entire length of that property?
Yes.
Kendall?
But shouldn't, on one of these properties, shouldn't there be like an assigned right to number 8 and civic number 15 to utilize? Like somewhere there should be some legal documentation saying they have a right to cross over this property and maintain it.
I believe it's shown as a private access to access those two lots.
And it's shown on that street right away? Or it's shown on their document, on their parcel?
I believe it's shown on the plans.
It's shown on the, okay, it's shown on the old Westmoreland Road land.
Thank you. With that being said, a member of PAC like to put a motion for or against with terms and conditions, please? Mr. Bishop?
I'd like to make a motion that this is tabled until ownership is, we can figure out who owns Old Westmoreland Road so we can make a proper decision.
Can I have a second? Oh, go ahead, Jennifer, sorry.
Sorry, just through you, Mr. Chair, just a point of clarification. An item would be postponed and not tabled if it's going to be looked at a distant.
Okay,
or
postponed,
deferred,
okay,
yes.
thank you.
Thank you.
Kendall? Oh, go ahead, dear, you okay?
No, I'm good with that.
Okay, thank you. Kendall?
I will second that motion.
Thank you. On that, any further debate on that motion? Brent?
Question, Mr. Chairman, I guess as we go through this process, my question to staff is survey markers. Do we need, I guess, as we're trying to go through this ownership, do we have to make sure the proper pins are in place to identify exactly where the Stewart's property lies and where the town property lies, and have a proper survey done as part of this process as ownership? Or are we going, or is that going too far down the rabbit hole?
Wait.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Preston, I think, in short, that's going a little further down the rabbit hole at this point in time. It's stepping back to identify, as has been mentioned, ownership, the need for stop up and close documents, if that's what's in order, if that's a will of council to do that, if that's what's directed by our solicitor. And then I think it's a review of what's been in the past, and then if it's ensuring who has the right, what's the ownership, what are the steps forward, what does that look like if PAC or the municipality wish to entertain the ask. So it's just simply reaching back to say, okay, where is the old Westmoreland Road right of way with respect to ownership and authority to make decisions.
Thank you, Dwight. With that motion, can we have a vote on, or any other motions put forward? None being, can we have a vote on that motion, please?
Sorry. That's okay.
What were you missing?
I just have to type it in.
Okay. Yes, correct. Not getting it? Okay, we'll just go through. Brent, you in favor? Kendall is, Darren?
Yes.
Mark? Brenda? That vote's unanimous, so that this item is postponed till a later date, till the town determines legal ownership, all the drawings, all the maps and everything's in place. And that again, Mr. Roberts, just to let you know, that's been postponed. That'll again be posted. You folks will have a chance again, that'll be sent to you in that neighboring area to come back again. And once we have all the documentation in place, and that'll be provided online, so. Okay, thank you. So, to let you know, Mr. Roberts, that's postponed. Yes, you can, yeah, you can. You don't have to stay for all the items unless you want to stay for the other 4 items we have on the list.
I found it, if you want me to bring it out.
Pardon?
I did find it on here.
What, to vote? No, we're good, as long as you got it, as long as you got it noted, huh?
Yep.
All right. That being, we're gonna move on to the new business, item 7A, 196 Quispamsis Road. Could the applicant please come up to the podium and state their name for the record, please? Oops, go ahead.
Sorry, my name is Laura Baradusi.
Okay. Laura, we're gonna have Jennifer introduce that item to us, and then we'll maybe ask you some questions. Go ahead, Jennifer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you to the committee members. Ms. Baraducci is before you to request the use of a travel trailer as being a temporary use for a period of 1 year. They are currently living at 196 Quispamsis Road, as my staff report has identified. They've moved a 36-foot trailer onto the lot last November and have been residing there ever since. There are provisions in the Community Planning Act that does allow the committee to approve a use for a period of not exceeding 1 year for a use that is usually not permitted, ordinarily not permitted by our bylaws. There is an additional provision in the Community Planning Act that would support a further extension of a temporary use by 1 year if a zoning bylaw amendment is submitted during that time. Unfortunately, staff cannot think of a zoning bylaw amendment that would help satisfy Ms. Berarducci's situation, and so that would not be available. So the period of approval is for a 1 year period. And I'm available for any questions the committee might have.
Thank you, Jennifer. You would have received the same package we did in the mail. Is there anything you'd like to add or discuss prior to members of PAC or members of the public asking you some questions?
Other than our perfectly orchestrated move going to complete chaos once we arrived here, right down to our living accommodations, as I did explain in our letter. So this is not ideal for us. In fact, it's quite humiliating. My husband is still in BC. So it's myself and the kids. I had to make a decision to let them integrate their lives here because they are young, and that was the whole point of our move. And I have been working months and months and months on the plans. Building yourself is definitely a step to the left. Stripping a building to the stud and rebuilding it, that's something I'm completely familiar with and very experienced at. But being an unfamiliar country, in a sense, or community, it has taken a lot longer for me to get all of these steps in place. And we are almost at a go. I'm literally down to the last piece. Maritime Way is definitely a new thing, but it's also pretty consistent with BC and trying to get contractors and quotes and everything else and try and pick and learn and research what's accurate, what's not. That has probably taken the most amount of time in developing this building plan. So I apologize again, when I was looking at the building bylaws and I put that, it's called a baby barn here. Is there another word? The accessory building? Okay, thank you. On the lot, I had read 25 feet from the road or from the property line, and I now know that that's a main arterial road, so I apologize. I was told that I did not need a building permit for the size of it or a development permit for the size of it. As for the trailer, I was driven around and shown that it was there. If you look at the Google Maps, there was another trailer sitting on the lot, and I was kind of at my wit's end as our living accommodations that we had arranged before move still had not come to fruition, and I needed to make a decision. So I was already on the lot working on it every single day, and so was Rusty when he was here. And when he is here, that's what he does. We bought it as a vacant lot. The neighbor, Mike, I should have brought him with me tonight, has been my saving grace. So he told me and found out the location approximately of the old well, and it was just buried. So my son and I dug a 6 foot by 4.5 foot deep hole. Steve's came and extended it. MB Power did hook up power to the barn so that my work crew that I thought would be a lot sooner would have power to work with. We are serviced by Ready John every week right now to keep it sanitary and safe environmentally. And I see that in here that there is an amendment that it could be asked to be off the property 30 days if approval is given. I will still need to maintain that for my work crew. And I think that is actually in WCP guidelines as well.
Okay, thank you. Any members of PAC have some questions for the applicant? Brenda?
I do, a couple, one's a little longer. You said you saw, when you're driving around, you saw multiple homes where they had travel trailers on their lot and their
Lots
building?
that were being developed.
Sorry?
Lots that were being developed.
In Quispamsis?
As far as I know, when this all first happened, everything that could go wrong went wrong. My husband was supposed to have surgery before we left, and he, like, literally the day we bought the property, he flew out. So it's kind of been me.
I've read your whole story. I know what you're saying.
That.
But my question is about if there are other places where there's a house being built with a travel trailer.
Yes.
Okay, if it's in Quispamsis, the staff could check that out, but they also probably had a building permit. do
Honestly,
that?
I have no idea. And again, I apologize. We did not come here to break any rules. I come from a community
And-
that's
and
more strict.
My other question is, my background was in the Department of Environment, and I want to know what you're doing with your gray water.
My gray, it all goes into the Ready John tank.
Sorry?
Everything goes into the Ready John tank.
Where's it drained into? Your washer, dryer?
So I drain my tanks into the Ready John tank.
All that water's going into Ready John?
Yes.
My understanding is running down to a ditch.
No, why? Nothing is running down to a ditch. The runoff water from the rain in that is where it's going. Like, not my gray water, sorry, like just the rain, that's where it's going. No, I was very careful about that.
Okay. How do you lug it? How do you get it from your washer pump to the Ready John?
So just my dryer is used for that.
Sorry, what?
I use the dryer, and then there is the laundromat. And generally, I'm in Sussex anyways, visiting, so I tend to do my
So
laundry
you're
there.
not washing clothes under
No.
that? Okay.
No,
My other question is a bit longer.
that's okay.
It's mostly puzzling. Okay, so you moved New Brunswick, right? Bought land. And I assume you managed the legal side of that, right?
That is purchased in our ownership, yes.
Yeah. And you bought a trailer,
We were living in Sussex.
got a storage shed,
Yes.
had your power hooked up, put the children in school and their sports, figured out how to have water in your trailer, right? But you didn't connect with the town of Quispamsis to find out what you should be doing in that situation. You just did whatever you wanted.
Honestly, and this is me being a jerk, obviously, I didn't even think about it that way. I went through and read what bylaws I could find for
Just
our future build.
Pick up the phone and call.
I should have.
I know.
And I apologize because it didn't even cross my mind at that point. I was in shock and survival mode and
I
trying to
understand
maintain as much
things are tough.
normalcy for my
I
children.
do understand things are tough, right? But that would be a simple phone call.
And I apologize again. There was that and the accessory building that I am definitely in error of. And I made a decision to put the trailer on there to start the lives instead of transporting back and forth to Quispamsis because I am already autoimmune and I was exhausted. So my other option was to maintain us in Sussex, continue all of the extra driving, let alone sports or them acclimating and integrating themselves, and potentially end up in the hospital. This way, I just thought I could work and then get all my ducks in a row to bring to you for a building permit.
Okay.
So I apologize. It was completely reactionary, and that is not normally who I am or how I function.
I'm done there.
Thank you, Brenda. Any other, well, Brent, go ahead, Brent.
Question for the applicant. You stated that you're close to having everything lined up to, so I guess my question is, how close are you to breaking ground and putting a foundation in?
So right now, I am still on track for the end of September.
To put a foundation in?
Yes.
And when are you gonna frame and close in?
So we are looking to live in the far right wing by winter. So in a sense, how do I explain that? We know our builder, and there's a lot of sweat equity on my part going into this. So as fast as they can put walls up, I can put sheathing up. The trusses are already designed and waiting in Moncton. And the only downfall, throw another wrench into it, was my draftsperson has been my father for forever, and it's something he had been teaching me. He is now going for cataract surgery, so I've just gotten a new draftsperson who also has an engineer with them to look everything over because the depth of the building is 40 feet. So the trusses had to be engineered not only to hold my ventilation system, but for that span, as well as instead of having your 16 on centers, mine will be 12 with a whole lot of LVL in there for support.
But if your trusses are already manufactured, they must have already been engineer stamped, were they not?
Oh, the trusses were.
Okay.
Oh, for that, but
You're talking about the structural integrity of the house to
Yes.
carry the weight, okay.
But for the drafts of the full house plan, so that you can see all your layers, everything that normally my father had been working on, he just can't.
Okay.
So,
So are contracts signed with your foundation guy to start September 30th or?
no,
So
no.
nothing is firm?
no, not that way, because I just needed this part finished. So for example, meeting with contractors, I can meet with 3 or 4, I'm just gonna use the septic one as an example, 3 completely different designs, ideas given to me to the point where I questioned a lot of it and ended up becoming a septic installer myself. Not that I'm looking to start anything. And lots of meetings with Tim Brown, the provincial inspector, just because some of the stuff was so out there. So I get that we're new to the province, and I understand fully that there is amazing growth happening in this community, but it's also let some other ideas or maybe some other people's ideas in on how to approaching you for information. And that has taken a lot of months to discern and get through it all.
Thanks, Brent. Any further questions from PAC members to the applicant?
May I just add to that? So the person that we're looking for concrete, he's ready to go when we are. Do I have a signed contract? No. He lives across the street from me, or his mother does, and a lot of his equipment is there. Does that help at all? My electrician's ready to go. I did not hear back from the plumber today. My builders are ready to go. Everything is ready to go. I just need one final piece. Okay.
I trade or in that industry, unless things are signed with a set date, don't count them as being your start date, trust me.
Thanks, Brent.
And I appreciate that. Thank you.
Mark, do you have a question?
Yeah, I do, yeah. I'm a little bit confused, to say the least, with various timelines, but I don't have a clear understanding what your timelines are, or when you're gonna have that house completed and trailer gun and everything else moved out.
So I've got in the land itself when we got there, and actually
The land is what?
the land itself, like when we bought it and were able to explore it, was quite impacted with a lot of garbage, old glass, metal.
But you
buried
saw that,
garbage,
you saw that,
right?
so that's not an excuse.
No, I did not really see the extent of it.
Well, you visit the property, you agreed to
We've
buy
been-
it.
yep, and
it's
so we've
done
been
deal.
removing
You
it.
bought it, you assume the liability that goes with it.
No, completely, but it still takes time to remove.
I don't have a clear timeline of, I sympathize with what they're going through, don't get me wrong, but don't have a clear indication of how many more excuses are we gonna hear until the time this project is completed?
Why would there be any excuses?
Well, give me a timeline on
And
everything.
honestly, I cannot give you an exact date as in September 30th. We are looking
That's only for the
to,
foundation.
for finishing, for completion,
Yeah,
I have a maximum of 18 months.
so you're telling me you're gonna be there in that trailer for another 18 months?
Oh, gosh, no. No. As soon as the house is sheathed, roofed, and like hooked up
When is
and
that?
not finished,
When is that?
I'm hoping 6 months max.
You're hoping.
Yes.
A lot of your hope didn't come true so far.
You know what? I've been working on it, and I think that I'm not completely out to lunch because I do
what
not
happened
want
if
to
you
be
don't-
in
what
that
happened
trailer
if-
over winter.
So what happened then if it's not done in 6 months from now? What do you want us to do?
What would my I guess I'm asking, what are you setting me for a timeline? Because I'm just reading what's in here, and a year is too much. But my own personal push to be in this house, it's not going to be finished, but it will be heated and occupiable in that time. I don't want to spend another winter in that trailer. I never wanted to live in a trailer. This was never an option.
But you understand where I'm coming from. I don't have, normally, somebody has a plan, it's got dates, and it's got contract signed or soon to be signed, and they have an estimated finishing date,
Yes.
okay? It could be varied by 15 days, I understand that, 20 days.
One is
But are
3
we gonna
weeks
be
for
talking
variance.
about the same issue again in November next year and the year after? Because you have an issue with the electrician, you had an issue with the plumber, you had an issue with the roofing, you had an issue with this. Like, that's not clear to me at all, to be honest with you.
Okay, so I apologize for that. So my builder, who lives in Sussex, is friends of ours for
Okay, is he
forever.
a builder or is our friend?
Both,
Okay, he
Okay.
build houses for
Yes.
living, for living,
yes.
okay.
So he lives in Sussex. So he's
Okay.
got everything set. All the materials, everything.
Okay, but you should have a timeline then if he's got everything set. He should have a.
For finish?
Okay, we're gonna do this, and this is when we expect to be completed.
18 months. I'm going to say 18 months, and I know it's not, that's too much.
You just
For-
mentioned to me.
I need to
6
be living in
months.
this house for winter.
Yeah, I'm
But
sorry.
you're asking, are you asking for completion of the house or for when it could be
Livable
occupied?
space, livable space.
Livable space, 6 months.
And what's your definition of livable space?
Windows, doors, roof, drywall, exterior. At worst, exterior wrap.
That same question Mark just asked, you told me you plan to be in there by November, now you're telling Mark 6 months, which puts you into
Well,
March.
I said winter, did I not?
No, you said winter to me is November, you're, like, we're getting
Oh.
too many stories. The timeline you kinda gave me is you're gonna be in the wing by November, now you're telling Mark 6 months, which puts you into March. Which
March.
means,
Oh, and please, I apologize. I'm very tired. I'm coming off of graveyards. I have not had a lot of sleep. And I apologize. My goal is to be in there for winter. Yes, I understand that that's extremely fast. Yes, I understand that the whole building might not be completely envelope packaged. But one side of that is also my workshop, so it doesn't need to be completed. I need running water, toilet, septic, that kind of thing, heat. The floor is heated concrete with forced air backup because you need 2 sets of heating. That's, yeah.
One more question. You have
And
a
I
con-
apologize, I don't have exact dates for you. I truly do.
I'm struggling with this, because
Okay.
normally your friend or your contractor should have that for you.
He's waiting
There's
on
no
my
way-
last piece.
There's no way I would sign a contract with a contractor without having firm dates, and I know a couple of things can happen, I understand that part. But you're very vague, you're vague, that's all I can say.
Okay.
Now, the other thing is, you have financing approved.
Yes.
Okay, so financing is not an issue.
Yeah. No,
Okay.
it's not an issue, sorry.
Okay.
What has been the most work is because it's a build-it-yourself type of loan. It does get wrapped into, I apologize, it's a specific name. Oh, if I can grab my phone, I can look up what the name of everything is. But,
No, I don't need.
okay.
Go ahead, Dwight.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So I know we're asking questions about timelines and all those, but ultimately there's already 2 established timelines. One is the request that's before PAC, a temporary use. Your timeline is 1 year. That's not determined by town, it's determined by the Community Planning Act. You'll only be extended if there's an actual rezoning or a zoning bylaw amendment, which we have established to our staff report, that is not going to be supported or considered. So one timeline is you have 1 year as a temporary use, subject to terms and conditions. The other timeline is the building permit. Part of that terms and conditions, as indicated in the staff report, is the building permit application must happen ASAP.
September 14th.
Once it is issued, you have 1 year. So to me, the timeline is 1 year. Now, PAC, if the discussions is regarding shortening that, but ultimately, once the permit is issued, there's 1 year to complete it.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, 1 year is completion of the whole thing, or just siding not finish and whatever?
So it's issued, the permit is issued, it's valid for 1 year. If then it becomes an inspection by the building inspection department, it can be renewed, but the renewal is not for 1 year. It's it's basically based on a certain time frame. So you can't keep renewing.
In our bank, the type of loan that it is only for 18 months, and that is to complete finish. If that helps as well. I have everything in me to get this done because I cannot maintain what we're doing now, emotionally or physically. So I'm asking, please, for your patience and understanding in a situation that curveball, like I've never seen anything curveball. I'm doing my best.
How long have you been living in that trailer now?
November.
Since when?
I think November.
November last year.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any further questions for the applicant? None being, is there anyone in the audience willing to speak for or against this item? Is there anyone in the audience willing to speak for or against this item? Third and final time. Anyone in the audience or online willing to speak for or against this item? None being, would a member of PAC like to put a motion for or against with terms and conditions as outlined in the memo from PAC? Anyone like to put a motion for? There's three options that were identified in the memo from PAC. Anyone want to make a recommendation there? We can start the motion and then we can debate it. Kendall?
I'll put motion, I guess it's option 2. I recommend that PAC, under the authority of section 3B1 of the zoning bylaw number 38, approve a temporary use of travel trailer as a dwelling unit for a period not exceeding 1 year with the firm expiry date. That must be November 30th, 2024, 2025.
No, 2025 is number 1.
No, 2024, to basically, your grandfathering from last November to this November.
But that's not enough time, is what she's
Then
saying.
you go back to option 1.
Okay, sorry. My apologies to everyone. I'm actually recommending option 1. I recommend that PAC, under the authority of section 3B1 of the zoning bylaw number 38, approve a temporary use of travel trailer as a dwelling unit for a period not exceeding 1 year with a firm expiry date of September 1st, 2025, and approve a variance to section 8G 2B III of the same bylaw to permit an accessory building within a 15-meter front yard setback, and approve a variance to section 8G4 to permit an accessory building on a lot prior to a main dwelling at 196 Quispamsis Road, PID 253120, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, the temporary use authorization is valid for a period not exceeding 1 year from the date of the notice of decision for this application. At such time, the travel trailer will cease to be used as a dwelling unit. Number 2, the property owners obtain approval from the necessary on-site disposal system for the proposed dwelling and connect the travel trailer and the Ready John be removed from site. Number 3, building permit application is submitted no later than September 15th, 2024 for the development of a single-family dwelling. So, number 4, a development permit application is submitted no later than 7 days of the notice of decision for this application for the existing accessory building. Yes, the application must be accompanied by a site plan which identifies a front yard setback at least 2 meters and a setback to the side yard lot line of at least 1.5 meters. Number 5, the accessory building must be relocated on the property on completion of the main dwelling unless otherwise approved by PAC. Relocation of the accessory building will not require an additional permit. However, a site plan submission and approval will be required. Number 6, an on-site septic installation permit is required from the Department of Justice and Public Safety and provided to the town prior to the issuance of a building permit.
Thank you, Kendall. Can I have a seconder on that? Mr. Bishop?
I'll second that.
Any questions on the motion? Mark?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, thank you. On number 2, the property owner obtained approval for the necessary on-site sewage disposal system for the proposed dwelling and connect to the travel trailer, and the ready zone be removed from the site. What's the timeline? Like, are we gonna give her 9 months to do this, or 3 months, or like, do we want to get done right away? Because that's a priority.
The on-site septic installation,
Yeah.
do you have a timeline when you expect that to be?
For my septic tank?
Yeah,
I have been just in communication with Mr. Plagenberg for the engineers that he uses. And like I said, I'm on my last thing to get that one going. It has to be an engineered septic system. And that doesn't take that long, but I also need to grade the lot. If I leave this existing septic system in place, which isn't good because I need to grade the lot, and they're not that, and the fields aren't deep enough, but Tim did say I could just do a tank replacement. It just kind of seems a waste of money to just replace the tank on the existing one when it's going to be graded out regardless. And due to the topography of the land, I am going down a couple of meters for the front to provide a proper drainage slope because there is an uphill forest that during the heavier rains, especially last summer, I would, to me, have a borderline raging creek that would go through, which we are dealing with a full width property, mid-hill French drain.
right.
6 months?
I was thinking.
I need to keep a Ready John site though for the workers. So I don't want to get in trouble for still having it.
Kendall, what were you thinking?
Well, I would have thought 3 months is sufficient, but I do think she needs to maintain the Ready John system. Like, if the goal is to get rid of the Ready John system, that's not happening. But I think you can get a septic system installed in 3 months.
Well, you're gonna have to, septic system put in when you're up in the basement.
Yeah, I don't have a basement, but
Or your.
my slab foundation,
Slab-
yeah, I still have to have the septic
your
system
septic-
in place,
I
yes.
mean, your roughings are all gonna have to be done, so the septic's gonna have to be done as part
Yeah.
of your slab.
Yes.
So I'd say 3 months.
Are you, but it might, like, I'm still going to have to keep a porta potty on the site for the workers. That's my only thing.
I guess for discussion purposes, I would say that the Ready John is not to be used for any disposal from the trailer, only to be used for construction purposes.
Okay.
It has to be arranged to the town.
I must say that if I don't have a timeline on this, I cannot vote in favor of this option. So I need some timeline, and I've been asking for timeline, and I've been not given any timeline, none whatsoever.
I'm
And I'm
sorry,
getting
sir.
frustrated because I'm not getting timeline on anything. So this is my position. If we don't have a septic field installed, and just like Mr. Preston mentioned, John, be used for the workers only, well, then I cannot vote in favor of this motion. So we put a timeline, you agree to it, then we're moving forward. If you don't put a timeline, I cannot vote in favor.
So I would have to come back with a signed concrete agreement for you to be satisfied. I don't understand. I'm sorry, which timeline?
Go ahead if you.
What we're saying is you'd have to have the trailer emptying into your septic field, and the Ready John can only be used for workers. That's-
The only thing
And
that may
time
not work,
frame,
though.
we're asking you, what time frame do you want us to include in this report, in this recommendation? If we don't have a timeline, we may not have motion get approved. So we need a timeline that works with PAC members that you're gonna agree upon to have your septic field put in and your travel trailer empty into that, and the Ready John can be arranged through the town to allow that be on there only for the workers.
I guess I'm not sure, and maybe I'm missing something, what the advantage of having the travel trailer hooked up to the septic tank system.
I'm going to have to
Is it-
purchase a
is
pump.
it like we pump out lots of tanks in the city, and it's for years, like, it's not a big deal.
Okay.
In my
Yeah,
opinion.
okay, we'll talk to Dwight. What do you,
But-
Dwight, go ahead. You got a comment?
I think it comes down to just a couple of things. One is if you're approving a trailer to be a dwelling unit, then obviously a porta potty that's on site for workers that are there 5 days a week or whatever that might be for 10 hours a day versus it is associated with a dwelling unit. So in the interest of taking the right steps to be sure you're protecting the environment, protecting, the wells and all that stuff that are around there, I think that's a reasonable ask. It needs to be on site. And in terms of the timeline, again, PAC has the authority to set that reasonable timeline. What does a normal septic take? 3-4 months? It needs to be
3 or
installed
4
before
months is
before snow
reasonable.
flies. So
Just I don't know what the lay of the land is. Can it, do you know for sure that you can get your trailer into the septic
and
field?
through
Like, is it?
Sorry, I know
As long as you
what
know
it,
you can do it, let's say it has to be done in 3 or 4 months.
Winter is coming. We gotta get a septic field before the winter.
Yeah.
That's right.
So end
She's
of November.
agreeing- She's agreeing to that.
Okay, well, I want it on writing, period.
6 months to say end of the year.
And one other comment through you, Mr. Chair, in terms of the Ready John associated with construction, there are lots of houses that are built, right? And you don't see a Ready John until you get to the framing stage or you get to the, foundations. They show up, put the frames up, pour the concrete, it's a day or a couple of hours in terms of, the amount of time they're on site. So that's the other thing.
Yep.
Right?
Kendall? What do you, End of the-
3 months, 4 months is fine with me, like end of November. November,
Would you agree to that?
septic approval.
okay, November 30th?
yeah.
Brent?
That was at the end, number 6, added to number 6.
So my only,
That was not part of number 2. Part of
Oh,
number 2,
sorry, Mark.
Brent?
I'm just, I guess my question is, and I don't know if anybody can, is there a timeline with regards to weather and that or frost, whatever, that the septic companies will no longer put in septic fields?
That's not for us to
No, I
decide.
know, but
Yeah.
that, yeah.
I wouldn't worry about that at this point. Brenda?
My question, comment, as a PAC member, I'm getting tired of rubber stamping things that people do wrong, but that's beside the point. But Dwight, when you were talking, it sounded like we did not have the authority to extend that for another year. Because she's already been living there for a year in November. So that's what we have to pretend is her timeline. To me, option number 2 is the perfect one. I like 3, but I would not go with that.
Go ahead, Dwight.
Through you, Mr. Chair, so it is the community planning access 1 year from the date of approval for that temporary use, not otherwise permitted by the bylaw. Again, it can be, yes, we accept the situation, however, we're establishing a timeline, to get you to get the building built, again, or as in the report, we recognize that you've been there. PAC can say you've already used it, but it's the actual ask and then making that decision. So through,
It's part, should be part of that year, to me.
again, through you, Mr. Chair, that's part of the debate on
part
the
of the discussion.
motion, and it is a motion on which PEC
Yeah,
members
the
have.
motion on the floor currently
Right.
is we'll call it grandfathered from starting now till September 1st. That's where we are today with a 6-month, 6-month deadline to have the, your septic field in and your trailer connected to the septic field and the Ready John, removed until, substantial construction or when the framing's in. That's where we are today on that. That's the only difference? November 30th. That's the only difference on the motion. Do you want to, maybe we should read that back? Are we okay with that? The change would be the property owners obtain approval from necessary on-site disposal systems for the proposed dwelling and connect to the trailer and Ready John be removed by November 30th, 2024.
Not remove the Ready John, just the trailer.
Okay, trailer be connected? Go ahead, Dwight.
So
Sorry.
to me, the Ready John, that's, is that a property owner that's doing that, or is the contractor that brings it on site because they need it for the workers?
She's the general.
Okay. The other comment I have is there 2 dates in that motion? Because I'm hearing from September the 1st, but the Community Planning Act serves from the date of approval. So today is the date that we're considering to approve.
Today is the date?
So it should be today, August.
Today's date, okay, no, it was
1
written
year.
in there, we read that as a date, so it's today's
It's
date.
1 year, 1 year from.
1 year from
the date of
today,
approval.
which is August 13th. Kendall, is that okay? Yeah, we'll say August 13th.
It's the
Today.
date of approval.
Perfect, 12 months from today. Okay? Any further debate on that motion? Any questions? Mr. Chair, Mr. Bishop?
So just confirming that the Ready John does not need to be removed. It can be there for construction purposes, but that she cannot no longer be dumping from the trailer to the Ready John
Correct.
as of November 30th.
30th, correct.
Okay.
It was just the gray tanks being dumped into it. But just,
It's okay, we got it, we're good. Everyone okay with that motion? Now that that motion's in place, can we have a vote on that motion, please?
Remove the Ready John from site by November 30th?
No,
Okay.
it can stay. But it can't, the trailer cannot be connected into the Ready John
As of November 30th.
as of November 30th.
Any wastewater, anything material cannot be disposed of in the Ready.
Yep. You okay?
Yep.
Perfect. Can we have a vote? Thank you. Everyone seeing that voting?
I didn't see it yet. It didn't come to me. No, I'm disconnected, I guess.
Yep, you're on.
So, I'm okay.
You're okay? How many, so Mark, put Mark as a yes? Is he the only one missing?
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm disconnected.
perfect. With that, the motion's been carried on a vote of 4-1. Please, make sure you have all your necessary, in 5 to 7 business days, you have a letter in the mail, but please work with the town, have all necessary paperwork and documentation in place, and please meet your dates and have everything in place. Please, don't hesitate to reach out to the town. They'll guide you through the process. Thank you.
thank you.
That being, we'll move on to item 7B, 29 Cannon Road. Could the applicant please come up to the podium? State your name for the record, and we'll
Melanie
have,
Saunier?
Pardon?
Melanie Saunier.
Melanie Saunier? Jennifer, you want to introduce this item for us? Go ahead, Jen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you to the committee. Before you is a request to operate a daycare facility for a maximum of six children, 5 external children and 1 that resides at the home, for a home daycare here in Quispamsis. Operating hours Monday to Friday, just regular business hours. Following all the provisions of the bylaw, meeting everything in 6L and I believe it's 6K for a home-based business and a daycare. Staff have no concerns. We received no concerns, and I'm open to any questions the committee might have. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. You would receive the same paperwork and application information we did in the mail. Anything you'd like to add or discuss prior to members of PAC asking you a few questions?
No, I think it's pretty straightforward, hopefully for one agenda item tonight. Hope you're... I feel like for my first time here, it's a little...
Not nervous this time.
I know it's late, but
All right,
no, I mean...
Thank you. Any members of PAC have any questions for the applicant? None being, anyone in the audience or online willing to speak for or against this item? Is there anyone online or in the audience willing to speak for or against this item? Third and final time. Anyone in the audience or online willing to speak for or against this item? None being, a member of PAC like to put a motion for or against with terms and conditions. Mr. Goslin.
I'll put a motion forward to approve a home occupation and discretionary use of a daycare that provides services to more than 5 children, but not more than 15, subject to the provision located in the zoning bylaw number 038, section 6L2 and 6K2, and subject to the following terms and conditions. 1, the daycare facility in operation must comply with all provincial regulation and conditions as may be set by the authority having jurisdiction. Number 2, the daycare facility and operations shall comply with all the provision in zoning bylaw number 038, section 6L1 and 6K2, and all the other applicable zoning bylaw provision. Number 3, a copy of the provincial approval to operate shall be submitted to the town for its record and reference. Number 4, any proposed increase to the number of children attending the daycare will require the approval of the Planning Advisory Committee. And number 5, there shall be no on-street parking. Number 6, the landowner enter into a development agreement with the town. And number 7, the daycare facility shall not be occupied until the operator provide the building inspector with evidence that the premises meet all the applicable building and fire code requirements.
Thank you, Mr. Goslin. Can I have a seconder on that, please? Brenda.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any debate on that motion? Brent? No? Okay, can we have a vote on that? Oh, Jennifer, sorry.
Hi, Mr. Chair, through you. Just a point of clarification under item number 2, it says section 6L1, that should read section 6L2. 6L2? Yes.
Okay, that's
Thank you.
accepted. Thank you. You have that fixed?
Okay, yeah.
Well, item 2, where it says 6L1,
Oh, yeah.
should be 6L2. All good? Okay, perfect. That being, can we have a vote on that, please? That motion's carried unanimously. 5 to 7 business days, you have a letter in the mail. Please make sure you work with the town, have all necessary paperwork and documentation in place, and best of luck.
Thank you. Pardon me?
You see how easy it is?
I think, I mean, based on the ones I saw before, I saw what it could have been, but
Thank you. Good
thank
luck.
you, guys.
That being, we'll move on to item 7C, Louise Steve subdivision, amending tentative plan. Could the applicant please come up to the podium, state their name for the record, please?
Hi, I'm Tina Gotro-Parfit.
Okay, perfect. We're gonna get Jennifer to introduce that for us.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you, before you is a request to amend subdivision plan to create a new building lot. Now, the new building lot will be undersized by 330 square meters. Currently, there is an on-site well and on-site septic system supporting the existing dwelling. The land would be subdivided, creating a new building lot, and the access would come off of Kenneth Drive for the new building lot if PAC does grant the approval. We would need to have a portable well service to the new dwelling, building lot, and also a new septic system, which would require an engineered system through the Department of Justice and Public Safety. Notice was sent to landowners within 100 meters of the subject property, and no concerns have been received, and we're available to answer any questions the committee might have.
Thank you, Jennifer. You would have received the same application or same information in the mail that we had. Anything you'd like to add or discuss besides before members of the PAC, members of the public ask you questions?
The septic system, I've already gotten the approval from the province. I thought I'd go that route first to make sure before I wasted your time again.
Make sure that gets shared with the town eventually.
They
Yeah.
should have received a copy of it, I believe.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Any members of PAC have any questions for the applicant? None being. Anyone online or in the audience willing to speak for or against this item? Anyone online or in the audience willing to speak for or against this item? Third and final time. Anyone in the audience or online willing to speak for or against this item? None being. Member of PAC like to put a motion for or against with terms and conditions. Mr. Preston.
I make the motion, Mr. Chairman. The Planning Advisory Committee recommends approval of the Louise Steve subdivision, amending tentative plan subject to the following terms and conditions. One, approval is sought from the Department of Justice and Public Safety for the installation of an on-site septic installation permit prior to the issuance of a development permit for the development of a dwelling lot on lot 23-2. Two, 700 square meter lot area variance is granted for lot 23-2 from section 25F2 of zoning bylaw number 038. 3, lot 23-2 is lot 23-2 civic number is to be associated with Kenneth Drive. 4, potable water to any dwelling on lot 23-2 is to be provided through an on-site drilled private well installed by a New Brunswick licensed well driller and completed as per the New Brunswick Clean Water Act. 5, land for public purposes, requirements to be satisfied through cash in lieu of land in the amount of $750 payable to the town of Quispamsis. 6, filing fees in the amount of $100 payable to the town of Quispamsis. And 7, development and building permit are issued to the town for the construction of single dwelling unit 23-2 prior to construction.
Thank you, Mr. Preston. Can I have a seconder on that? Brenda.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any debate on that motion? None being. Can we have a vote, please? That motion's carried unanimously. 5 to 7 business days, you'll have a letter in the mail. Please work with the town, have all necessary paperwork and documentation in place, and best of luck.
Great, thank you very much.
You're welcome. That being, we're gonna move on to item 7D. Kenview Heights Phase 2 subdivision tentative plan. Could the applicant please come up to the podium? State your name for the record, please.
Jerry Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. Dwight, you want to introduce that one for us?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, Mr. Chair, to the Planning Advisory Committee. So we've received a subdivision application that the request is to create 2 lots that don't front a municipal street. In this particular, in this particular case, we do know who owns the land on which the subdivision is happening. So, as in accordance with the subdivision bylaw and the zoning bylaw, where lots don't front a street or a road owned by the Crown or the municipality, then such access to those lots must be approved by the Planning Advisory Committee. The application that's come before us is proposing the creation of 2 lots. Those lots, as proposed, would meet or do meet the required size and lot widths and those types of things. So it's clearly a approval process with respect to the access. The application that's been submitted indicates there is, the intent is to create a private street or private lane known as Twilight Lane, that based on the application or the plan that's submitted, it would be its own parcel of land. Again, the applicant may wish to clarify that, but my interpretation is the lane itself would be a parcel of land with its own PID, an own owner, and then the lots fronting that or coming off that would also be their own lots with their own PID. So it's not like a flag lot with a right-of-way over it. It's an actual laneway dedicated for that purpose. So as I've sort of indicated and stated in my staff report and vented a little, and I apologize if it came across as being a vent, unfortunately, the town does not have a policy. Is there one being crafted? Absolutely. We come, as a planning staff, we come to the planning advisory committee looking for approvals, and we're using the recommendations of the planning advisory committee to approve such plans. As PAC is more than aware, and I would imagine staff is more than aware, and I will even extend that out to council is more than aware. The challenge isn't when you approve them. The challenge becomes when there's houses sitting on them, and it's who's maintaining it, who's paying for it. Again, when you have 1 or 2 lots, there's usually some reasonable level of agreement. It's when you get beyond that. The more, I always relate it to when you have, 1 or 2 children, it's pretty manageable. When you get into 5 and 6 and 7, the amounts of arguments are more than likely going to happen. So the challenge is making sure there's some sort of agreement in place where there's clear what's required and who's responsible to maintain and do their part is clearly established. And as I've said, in the staff report, that is the challenge. And a lot of times we get people who purchase these lots and they call or they email and they say, well, I purchased this lot, but I wasn't aware that the town doesn't maintain it. I wasn't aware that I was responsible, which causes us, and I'll be honest, to scratch our head. How can you make one of the largest investments in your life and not know, I'm responsible to maintain the access? So that's the challenge. And it's a challenge with not just, this one or those moving forward, is clearly establishing some kind of agreement that's registered and clearly defined, who owns it, who maintains it, who's responsible for it, and to what level.
Thank you, Dwight. Mr. Roberts, you would have received the same package we did in the mail. Anything you'd like to add or discuss prior to members of PAC or the public asking you some questions?
Just a little bit of history on it. I've got about 9 acres left there on that property, and what I've got started is a house on the lot where it's indicated as the house in there. There's building permit's been issued. It's on the large parcel, but what I'd like to do, well, the reason I want to do it is I want to have my house separate from the remaining part of my land. So if anything ever happens to me or whatever, then the house could be sold separate from the rest of it. But while I'm up in there, where I've got the lane, where I'm proposing the lane to be, is there's a lot right across from it that would, in back of my existing house. My existing house is on the corner, number 27, right there. Yeah, and no, the north of it. Yeah, I think you pointed to it, didn't you? Yeah, not that one, but the other one. It's serviced off of that lane right now, and really what I'm proposing to do is extend the driveway up and have my house connect to that driveway and have one other lot feed into it. Mainly because, there's a couple things in there. My daughter has talked about coming back from Nova Scotia, and they would like to, if they do, live there, and if they don't, I'd like to be able to convey that lot, because when you get up in there, you're kind of in the middle of nowhere, not in the middle of nowhere, but you're up into an area of woods in back of it and a fair amount. But I'd like to have, be able to either convey it to my daughter or sell it to somebody else, so that at least there's somebody else up in there for now. The rest of the land, I'd like to maintain that parcel could be a future street someday. I've done it right from the start when I built my house there at 27, is I constructed half the road, like the driveway of half of where a future road would be, so that if it ever was continued on as a public street, it could just be widened to the west and be paved and done all the good stuff that needs to go with the main subdivision. But right at this point, I'd like to take my house out, have its own PID number. Anything when I still own my other house, so when I sell that, there would be an agreement, for both my property, that other house, and if there's anybody lives in the other parcel or buys it, that they would maintain the plowing of the street and any maintenance that's necessary on the street. And right now, we put a name on it, Twilight Lane, because of the way the street numbers are. I'm going with 27 Kenneth Drive right now, but for anybody that's asking what it is, but there's just the whole street numbers would have to be reworked, I guess, if it isn't doesn't become a private lane. So, yeah. So other than that, I think Dwight summed it up in the report quite well. So,
Thank you. Any members of PAC have any questions for the applicant? None being, anyone online or in the audience willing to speak for or against this item? Anyone online or in the audience willing to speak for or against this item? Third and final time, is there anyone online or in the audience willing to speak for or against this item? None being, would a member of PAC like to put a motion for or against with terms and conditions, please? Mr. Bishop.
I'll put a motion forward that PAC approve the privately owned access to lot 202401 and 2024-1, subject to the terms and conditions it deems reasonable for the development of the land, where such conditions should include: 1, legally binding agreement for all property owners to benefit from the privately owned access that clearly establishes terms and ownership's maintenance and upkeep. The agreement shall be binding on all heirs assigned and successors. 2, a hold harmless agreement to protect the town and to make the property and homeowners aware of the responsibilities associated with the private driveway that does not abut a municipal street and highlights the concerns from fire, police, ambulance, and important unobstructed access. 3, a hold harmless agreement to incorporate a clause whereby it is recognized by the eventual landowners of lot 2024-1, 2024-2, and the future owner of the existing 27 Kenneth Drive that investment made in construction of the private access will not be recovered if it is destroyed during construction of a public street to municipal standards. 4, a line of sight analysis be completed by qualified professional and submitted to the town. The analysis to identify any site or stopping distance concern that need to be addressed because of the location of Twilight Lane with Kenneth Drive. 5, PAC grant approval to the private lane named Twilight Lane. There are no conflicts determined through comparisons with the Master Street address guide. 6, right of way over Twilight Lane is granted to 27 Kenneth Drive or renumbered to Twilight Lane, which is reflected of the current driveway location of the existing dwelling. 7, on-site sewage disposal system approval for both 2024-1, 2024-2 must be submitted to the town prior to the issuing of a building permit. 8 potable water supply service for both lots 2024-1, 2024-2 through privately owned drilled wells and installed by an MB licensed well driller as per the Clean Water Act 9. Submission of the lane grade information and details regarding the method to be utilized to provide ditch stabilization, accessible erosion control that must be acceptable to the town's engineering department prior to submission of plan approval. 10, the manner in which LPP obligations are to be met, where cash in lieu of land would equate to $1,500, filing fees in the amount of $100 for submission plan of 2 or less lots. 12, the development of Kenview subdivision phase 2 must comply with applicable town bylaws, provincial acts, regulations thereto. 13, this only is approval for 2 lots. Anything over 2 lots, the road must be upgraded to a public municipal street.
Thank you, Mr. Bishop. Mr. Colburn for.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just go through you to Mr. Bishop and to the Planning Advisory Committee. Just regarding item number 6, that was sort of a scenario. Is the recommendation to grant a right-of-way over and for the existing 27 to remain as 27, or is it more advantageous to get it renumbered to Twilight Lane? Because that is where the actual driveway location is.
Mr.
There is no
Bishop?
driveway location off of. And
I
as I
guess-
mentioned, the preferred from a access perspective and civic numbering is that it would be renumbered off Twilight Lane when you get to that point.
Yeah, I guess the driveway is on Twilight Lane, so I'm not sure, Mr. Roberts, being in the business that he was in, probably would know how hard or easy that would be to change it from from Kenneth, 27 Kenneth to 1 Twilight. But I think if it's gonna be on Twilight, the driveway's gonna be there. I think that is how it should be done. Yeah, renamed.
Can I address that?
Go ahead, Jerry.
I guess, yeah, that makes sense to me. I'd like to keep 27 Kenneth Drive till I move out, but then it would just become whoever buys the house, a matter of them changing the address to Twilight Lane.
Yep, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, that's when that transaction would happen. It would be when the transaction of the sale, then we could renumber it.
Okay with that, Darren?
Yep, I'm fine with that.
Perfect. Kendall, second that?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Any debate on that motion? None being, can we have a vote, please? That motion's carried unanimously. 5 to 7 business days, you have a letter in the mail. Make sure you have all necessary paperwork, documentation filed with the town, and best of luck with your properties.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I'm glad I owned it and wasn't an old public right away.
Well, that's coming back to haunt us again, Jerry. It's gonna be good.
Right. No, I didn't. Our company did though. but it is there's a lot of history to that. Like they said, once a road, always a road until it's been
Closed up. Stop and close,
Stop
right?
and close. You're more than likely to go all through it with the Old Neck Road. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
perfect. With
Okay.
that being, we'll jump on to item 8.
thank you very much.
Thanks, Jerry.
I'll see you again or not.
Go ahead.
Maybe someday.
Jerry, one comment, you're now going to live in the Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
That's what she said, sounds old.
That being, we'll move on to item 8, information items of discussion, none being, there was no minutes, was there? None. That being, we'll move on to item 9. Can I have a motion to adjourn, please? Mr. Bishop?
So moved.
Can I have a seconder on that, please? Brenda?
I'll second that.
Thank you very much. Meeting has been adjourned. We'll see everyone in September the 20th? No, it's before that. 10th. 2 meetings in September. We'll see.